She was originally the granddaughter of Imperial physician Lin. Because she was sickly, she was raised in the Gu family, her maternal grandfather's home in Jiangnan, since childhood. However, fate plays tricks. After her grandfather died, no one in the Gu family could care for her. So she followed Granny Liao back to her hometown, only to encounter the tragedy of the Gu family's massacre. For her safety, Granny Liao made her change her name. From then on, she became Gu Qingning. She went to the capital to seek refuge with the Shun family at the Guangping Hofu. During these 10 years in the Shun family, Gu Qingning has been secretly investigating the truth behind the Lin family bloodbath. Later, the Lin family case was transferred to the Dali Si. The minister Dali Si is Qin Guogong, Lu Changwei. Just then, the Qin Guogong manor sent someone to ask for Gu Qingning's hand as the principal wife for the second young master, Lu Hongji. Everyone envied the good luck of this orphan girl, and Gu Qingning, in order to investigate the case, went along with it and agreed to the marriage. Everything was proceeding according to plan. But on the eve of the wedding, a sudden change occurred. On this day, Gu Qingning was in the Hanxiang pavilion, focused on sewing her wedding dress. She was looking forward to finding clues to the case in the Guogong manor. However, Lu Hongji's arrival shattered this tranquility. Qingning, I want to marry Ruo Ying as my wife. The needle in Gu Qingning's hand paused. What did you say? Lu Hongji looked calm, as if stating something perfectly normal. In a few days, we will hold the wedding. I can only welcome you through the door with the rights of a concubine. But don't worry, for the sake of our years of friendship, although she is the wife and you are the concubine, in the future, you will still be sisters in the manor, regardless of rank. Gu Qingning was shocked and questioned him. Shen Ruoying is your widowed sister-in-law. But Lu Hongji argued impatiently. Although Ruoying had a marriage contract with my elder brother, my brother died in battle before they were married. She doesn't count as my widowed sister-in-law. Now the whole capital is spreading rumors that Ruoying is cursed to harm her husband. If I don't marry her, she won't be able to live. Gu Qingning pointed out that Lu Jingyu was his elder brother, and he had been dead for less than half a year, yet he couldn't wait to marry his brother's unconsummated wife. Questioned, Lu Hongji started threatening directly. Gu Qingning, do you agree or not? What if I don't agree? Lu Hongji suddenly stood up and overturned the teacup on the table. Ruoying, Dot is your cousin after all. Must you force her to death? Just then, Shen Ruoying walked into Hanxiang Pavilion in a panic. Hongji, don't conflict with cousin because of me. Shen Ruoying walked up quickly, grabbed Lu Hongji's arm, and choked with sobs. It's all my bad fate. Before I even married over, the Zaigongi had an accident. It's all my fault. Qingning, if you want to blame someone for this, blame me. Don't blame Hongji. He is just helping me for the sake of our childhood friendship. Seeing this, Lu Hongji immediately pulled Shen Ruoying into his arms with pity, while pointing at Gu Qingning and cursing loudly. If I had known you were like this, the home manor shouldn't have raised an ingrate like you. Being able to marry into the Guogong manor as a concubine is better than being a mere orphan girl. What are you dissatisfied with? Gu Qingning lowered her eyes, the corners of her mouth curling into a mocking sneer. She didn't care about marrying into any Guogong manor. All of this was just a setup for her to find out the truth. She remembered her past experiences. The bloody scenes were still vivid in her mind. So she calmly asked Lu Hongji, aren't you afraid of being laughed at by the whole capital for doing this? Lu Hongji was dismissive, stating that this was all to save Ruoying. Shen Ruoying wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and feigned weakness, saying, forget it. This matter is ultimately my fault. Who told me to have such bad fate? Before I married over, the Zaigongi had an accident. Since then, I've carried the reputation of cursing my husband. I'll go tell Hongji's grandmother and the others right now. I won't marry. I'll go become a nun. After saying that, she ran out crying. Lu Hongji was about to chase after her, but suddenly turned his head to look viciously at Gu Qingning. I came today to notify you, not to discuss with you. Either you voluntarily ask to be a concubine, or our marriage is canceled. Leaving these words behind, Lu Hongji turned and chased after her. Shen Ruoying sobbed softly in his arms. She knew very well that with Lu Jingyu dead, Lu Hongji would immediately inherit the title and become the Zaigongi. So her choice to marry Lu Hongji was not wrong. Thinking of this, a smile crossed her lips. Who would want to be a widow when they could be the wife of a Zaigongi? Bang Xio was worried that Shen Ruoying would really go to become a nun, but Gu Qingning saw through her cousin's thoughts. Shen Ruoying wouldn't bear to. Her cousin, at first glance, indeed seemed like a perfect, noble lady from a prestigious family. But if she were truly so noble and flawless, how could she turn around and want to marry the seventh brother, Lu Hongji, shortly after the Zaigongi died? And under the premise that he had another engagement? My cousin is not a simple character. Seeing her mistress so calm and composed, Banksia also calmed down. She asked curiously, "Miss, shall we continue organizing the dowry then?" Gu Qingning nodded. "Continue organizing. Remember to bring my medicine chest, medical books, and other items." Banksia nodded obediently and hoisted a chest weighing over 100 jin onto her shoulder with one hand. To investigate the Lin family case from back then, she definitely had to marry into the Qing Guogong manor. But regarding the matter of Shen Ruing marrying Lu Hongji, she wouldn't let it go easily. She had to think a good plan. Early the next morning, Gu Qingning was summoned to old Madame Shun's Scion Hall. Stepping into the hall, thus she saw old Madame Shun and Madame Shun sitting in the seats of honor. Lu Hongji's mother, the Guogong foreign Feng Shi, was also sitting at the side. She had always looked down on Gu Qingning, this orphan of merchant background. Now, hearing that her daughter-in-law was to be swapped for the legitimate daughter of the home manor, Shenring, she was incredibly happy. Her attitude even became amiable. "Qingning, although this matter came suddenly, we all know you have always been sensible and reasonable. Presumably, you won't oppose this marriage, right?" Old Madame Shen also chimed in from the side, saying that the two of them grew up together. In the future, as sisters-in-law, you can support each other. The Shenhou manor will also back you up. Gu Qingning pondered secretly. She understood Shen Ruoying's nature too well. If Shen Ruoying became the mistress of the Guogong manor, that she would definitely create endless obstacles for her. Her remaining life would be trapped in the backyard, tormented to death by them. More importantly, she shouldered the heavy responsibility of finding the truth behind the Lin family massacre and needed freedom of movement to have more chances to explore clues. Trapped in the backyard like this, how could she investigate the case? Seeing Gu Qingning silent for a long time, Madame Shun and old Madame Shun were a bit puzzled. Madame Shun snorted coldly and began to apply pressure, saying that the Shun family had raised her as the eldest miss for 10 years, and she couldn't make things difficult for the Shun family at this time. Gu Qingning spoke unhurriedly. "What the elders say is true. In the future, with cousin and me in the same manner, that we can indeed support each other." Hearing this, everyone thought she had relented. Feng Shi proudly praised her for being sensible. Old Madame Shun also comforted her, saying that her food and clothing in the Guogong manor wouldn't be poor. Madame Shun also followed with hypocritical praise. Looking at these hypocritical faces before her, Gu Qingning's lips curled into a mocking smile. "However, I want to be a concubine for Lu Hongji. I want to remarry to the Zaigongi, Lu Jingyu, as his wife." As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. Gu Qingning and her cousin had their engagement set on the same day. Her cousin was to marry the heir of the Guogong manor, while she was betrothed to the second son, who knew the Shitzi would suddenly die in battle, and the title would be inherited by the second son. Her cousin, fearing the reputation of cursing her husband, actually turned around and entangled herself with Gu Qingning's fiancé. And on the eve of the wedding, the fiancé actually forced her to voluntarily ask to be a concubine. Gu Qingning angrily refused, bluntly stating that being a concubine was worse than being the eldest sister-in-law. She simply proposed on the spot to swap marriages and marry the deceased Zaigongi. In the end, she entered the Guogong manor with a spirit tablet. Gu Qingning's sentence, "I don't want to be a concubine for Lu Hongji. I want to remarry to the Zaigongi, Lu Jingyu, as his wife," stunned everyone as soon as it was spoken. Gu Qingning was not acting on impulse. She understood that if she married Lu Hongji as a concubine, what awaited her would be Shen Ruoying's overt and covert attacks and endless disputes in the inner courtyard. But marrying the deceased Zaigongi, ostensibly remaining a widow, was actually a shortcut for her to avenge the Lin family. She knew that only by entering the Qing Guogong manor would she have a chance to get close to the truth and seek justice for her parents who died unjustly. Madame Shun was the first to recover from the shock, loudly questioning if Gu Qingning was crazy. Feng Shi, however, already had alarm bells ringing in her heart. She didn't want Gu Qingning to marry Lu Jingyu. If her son's fiancé remarried to his elder brother, what would that look like? The whole capital would say that Hongji took advantage of his elder brother's death to steal his sister-in-law, and treacherously abandoned his fiancée. By then, Lu Hongji's reputation would be completely ruined. Gu Qingning, however, looked calm and composedly pointed out, if both Shen Ruiying and I marry Lu Hongji, how will the people in the capital view it? The Xiaogangi was a war hero of Great Chu. Once the censors catch wind of this and impeach him in court, the Shun and Lu families will face a huge crisis. These words hit Feng Shi's weak point directly, forcing her to consider carefully. Compared to Lu Hongji's reputation, the safety of the Qin Guogong manor was naturally more important. Finally, Feng Shi said she would go back and ask the Guogong for instructions. Gu Qingning bowed slightly and said, "That is how it should be." Back at Hanxiang Pavilion, Bangxia anxiously told Gu Qingning that although the Qin Guogong manor agreed to her marrying in, the wedding date was set for the same day as Shen Ruiying's. This was obviously perfunctory. Gu Qingning didn't care at all. She believed that as long as she could enter the Qin Guogong manor, nothing else mattered. She knew well that being a widow was better than being a concubine for Lu Hongji. Shen Ruiying was smooth and slick. If she became the mistress, life in the inner courtyard would only be harder. But since ancient times, there has been a rule. If a man dies without an heir, the family can welcome a wife for him to manage the property. By choosing this path, she could avoid the disputes of the inner courtyard and focus on avenging her family, without wasting time on meaningless household struggles. She lit 3 sticks of incense, clasped her hands together, and silently swore an oath of revenge for the Lin family against the curling smoke. On the wedding day, drums and gongs filled the sky. The Guangping Hofu's wedding procession stretched for 10 miles. The 2 bridal sedans side by side attracted the attention of countless passers-by. The common people discussed animatedly. Some praised the legitimate daughter of Guangping Hofu for her righteousness, while others spoke the truth about the swapped marriage. A masked man hearing these discussions had a flash of astonishment in his eyes. Someone beside him whispered gossip. "I think this widowed sister-in-law and the brother-in-law must have had an affair long ago, leading to this marriage swap drama." Another person sighed along, "Poor cousin girl. A perfectly good position as the principal wife is gone, and she has to become a widow instead. What a hard fate." Hearing this, the masked man's aura instantly turned a few degrees colder. Just then, a plain-looking man in cloth clothes gently patted his shoulder, pulling his drifting thoughts back. The 2 exchanged a look, then quietly disappeared into the bustling crowd. Inside the Qin Guogong manor, the wedding ceremony proceeded in an orderly manner. Gu Qingning, dressed in a bright red wedding gown, solemnly completed the bowing ceremony with Lu Jingyu's spirit tablet. After the ceremony, she personally held the cold spirit tablet. The maids led her towards the courtyard of the former Xiaogangi. Along the way, the whispers of guests kept drifting into her ears. So what if she bowed? She can't consummate the marriage. She can only go back, wash up, and sleep. But she turned a deaf ear, stepping firmly into the courtyard she had carefully planned for. Songta Oj in the Qin Guogong manor, although hung with red silk and red lanterns, that seemed cold and desolate due to the passing of Xiaogangi Lu Jingyu. The cold wind blowing at night made one shiver for no reason. Bangxia was young but bold. She clenched her fist and said firmly to Gu Qingning, "Miss, that I'll sleep here with you tonight. If any ghosts really dare to come, this servant will punch them flying." At this time, Gu Qingning had removed her heavy wedding makeup and changed into inner garments. Hearing Bangxia's words, she couldn't help but curve her lips. Even if there really are ghosts, the Xiaogangi was a hero of indomitable spirit. That how would he bully weak women like us? "I see Granny Liao doesn't look very energetic today. Go sleep with her." After Bangxia left, the dragon and phoenix candles on the table popped a wick flower. Gu Qingning looked at the flickering candlelight and smiled gently. They say a wick flower announces a happy event. But what happy event can I have in my current situation? Could it be foreshadowing that I can find the true culprit who killed my parents soon? Such a good omen was worth a drink to celebrate. She casually picked up the wine cup on the table and took a sip. Who knew the alcohol would hit so fast and hard? In just a moment, she felt dizzy and collapsed straight onto the table. At this moment, a dark figure quietly pushed the door open and entered. It was the masked man from the day. His gaze fell on the drunken Gu Qingning. "Is this my nominal bride?" He walked forward lightly, bent down, and carefully picked her up. Then he gently placed her on the bed in the inner room. The woman in her sleep perhaps felt hot and subconsciously tugged at her collar, causing the man's eyes to darken. He hurriedly lowered the red gauze curtains, silently reciting, "See no evil," in his heart. He turned and passed the table, seeing the remaining nuptial wine in the cup. Without hesitation, he picked it up and drank it in one gulp. Suddenly, Lu Jingyu's wet nurse, Chun Finfong, walked in and sternly questioned who he was. The man slowly took off his mask. It was actually the Xiaogongyi, Lu Jingyu, who was rumored to have died in battle half a year ago. Chun Finfong was both surprised and delighted, then burst into tears. "Xiaogongyi, you're still alive. That's wonderful." Lu Jingyu supported the excited Chun Finfong. "It's a long story." He immediately asked, "What exactly is going on with this bride swap in the manor today?" Mentioning this, Chun Finfong angrily recounted how Shen Ruoying refused to be a widow after his accident and turned to seduce the second young master, while Gu Qingning was pushed to fill the pit. After listening, Lu Jingyu's expression remained calm, revealing no emotion. He told Chun Finfong not to reveal the fact that he was alive for the time being and arranged to hand over the properties and shops under Songtaroj to Gu Qingning to manage. He thought of the slender figure with the furrowed brows on the bed, feeling she was innocent and pitiful. He instructed Chun Finfong to take good care of Gu Qingning before his return, thought to prevent her from suffering any more undeserved calamities. After explaining everything, he turned and left the Guogong Manor. The newlywed widow's first day. Hard-hitting the home manor's legitimate daughter. She dropped a line, "According to the rules, you should call me eldest sister-in-law," asserting her status. The legitimate daughter of the home manor who abandoned her fiancé. The mother-in-law was speechless. The Guogong Manor House fight starts with high energy. The day after the wedding, Gu Qingning woke up in Songtaroj. Her expression was a bit confused. She remembered falling asleep on the table last night. "How did you get into bed?" At this time, the maid Banksia lifted the curtain and entered to serve her in changing clothes. When she helped her up, Banksia was shocked by her appearance. Gu Qingning's eyes were red, swollen, and bloodshot. It turned out the dragon and phoenix red candles burned all night, and the pungent smell of wax oil smoked her eyes until they were red and painful. Banksia was distressed and hurried to get on medicine. However, Gu Qingning just waved her hand gently to refuse. When she walked to the table, she looked at the empty nuptial wine cup, a flash of understanding in her eyes. She must have been dead drunk, which is why she blacked out and moved from the table to the bed. Subsequently, Gu Qingning ordered Banksia to help her dress and apply makeup. Today was the day after the wedding. According to the rules, she should go to the main hall to serve tea. Inside the main hall, Gu Qingning walked forward with dignified poise to serve tea. Qin Guogong's gaze fell on her red-rimmed eyes, a trace of imperceptible emotion flashing in his eyes. Feng Shi, on the side, presented a jade bracelet and personally put it on her wrist, speaking polite words about being a family. But as soon as she finished speaking, sweet laughter came from outside the door. Lu Hongji and the home manor's legitimate daughter, Shen Ruoying, walked in hand. Their behavior was intimate, completely disregarding the manor's rules. Qin Guogong frowned slightly, obviously dissatisfied with this late tea service. Seeing this, Feng Shi quickly smoothed things over. The two hurriedly made up for the greeting. Gu Qingning stood quietly to one side, observing her nose and heart. It wasn't until the word study came out of Qin Guogong's mouth that her brow twitched imperceptibly. She had long heard that the dossier of her family's old case that was hidden in the Guogong study. It was just that the study was heavily guarded, and she didn't know when she would have a chance to investigate. Before she could rest, Shen Ruoying leaned in, pretending to care if she recognized the bed, but actually deliberately tilting her neck to reveal ambiguous red marks to show off. Gu Qingning remained silent, as if she hadn't seen her provocation. Seeing this, Lu Hongji added fuel to the fire, accusing her of not knowing what's good for her. Ruoying is kindly caring for you. Why don't you answer? He was already holding back anger towards Gu Qingning, an orphan with no one to rely on. He kindly offered her to be a concubine, but she would rather keep her widow status than comply. Truly hateful. Shen Ruoying quickly held him back, pretending to scold. Hongji, don't say that. Look at the shadows under Qingning's eyes. She must not have slept well last night. Lu Hongji sneered. You care for her so much. But she may not appreciate it. Gu Qingning then looked up. Thank you for your concern. Living in Songtaroj is strange. I didn't answer just now because I was pondering something. Now that I have married into the manor, according to the rules, you should call me eldest sister-in-law. But I didn't prepare the change of address gift today. That is my negligence. She turned to look at Feng Shi, her for confirmation. Cornered, Fengshe could only laugh dryly and agree. Lu Hongji and Shan Ring's faces turned green and white, but eventually they reluctantly called out, "Eldest sister-in-law, I will make up the gift later." Gu Qingning responded faintly. Her gaze swept over their ugly expressions, and she said no more. Shen Ruoying was instantly so angry her face turned dark. Seeing this, Fengshe quickly changed the subject, looking at Lu Hongji and Shen Ruoying. "Since you are married now, live a good life in the future and strive to let me hold a grandson soon." She was calculating in her heart. Her son married the legitimate daughter of the home manor. If she could give birth to a male heir early, the Guogong would definitely let Hongji inherit the title. After speaking, she turned pointedly towards Gu Qingning, her tone carrying a bit of sarcasm. "When there are more children in the manor, it will naturally be lively. Qingning, don't you agree?" In her view, a widow destined to be childless, even if married into the Guogong manor, what reliance could she have? Unexpectedly, Gu Qingning smiled faintly. "Mother is absolutely right. If the second brother and sister-in-law have many children, you might as well adopt one or two to our first house in the future. It would add some liveliness." As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the three changed drastically. What? Adopt? And one or two? They never expected Gu Qingning would dare to say such a thing. Before everyone could recover, Gu Qingning excused herself and left. However, just as she stepped out of the main hall, hurried footsteps came from behind. Shen Ruoying was unwilling to give up. She chased up quickly, using the excuse that Aunt Chun of Songtuoj had a tough personality and wanted to follow her back to discipline her, but actually wanted to interfere in Songtuoj's affairs. Gu Qingning already knew that Aunt Chun was a confidant of the Xiaogongi's birth mother, and she saw through Shen Ruoying's scheme. She immediately smiled and declined politely. "I'll handle the matters of my Songtuoj myself." Watching Gu Qingning's determined retreating figure, Shen Ruoying's maid couldn't help but complain. But Shen Ruoying sneered endlessly. In her view, Gu Qingning was nothing but a helpless orphan girl. Lu Hongji was deluding himself that he would become the master of the Guogong residence, and that he would then be able to trample her underfoot. Meanwhile, Gu Qingning took a turn around the back courtyard of the Guogong residence. Under the pretext of having a maid introduce the layout, she quietly memorized the location of the Guogong study before heading straight back to Songtao Pavilion. However, just as she sat down to rest, Chen Mama, known for her strict nature and difficult temperament, came to visit. Gu Qingning rose to welcome her, wearing a proper, faint smile as she took the initiative to exchange pleasantries. "I should have spoken with Chen Mama sooner, but I was delayed by admiring the tea and wanting to familiarize myself with the residence's environment first. I made Mama wait." Chun Fenfong nodded in response, her gaze scrutinizing Gu Qingning closely. This new mistress would rather remain a widow than remarry, showing deep affection for the late Xiaogongi, Lu Jingyu. Coupled with the Xiaogongi's specific instructions from the night before, she had already made up her mind. A rare, kindly smile squeezed onto her usually stern face. "Madam need not be so formal. This is what a servant ought to do." As soon as she finished speaking, she clapped her hands. Servants outside the door then carried chests and jars one by one into Songtao Pavilion. Here are the rosters of all the servants, as well as the storehouse keys and account books. This servant has prepared everything. From today onwards, Songtao Pavilion is handed over to Madam to manage. Looking at the chests and account books piled half a person high, Gu Qingning was truly stunned. She had long heard that Chun Mama was a confidant of the Xiaogongi's birth mother, with a tough and unyielding character. How could she so easily hand over all of the Xiaogongi's assets? But to her, this was truly contrary to reason. She recovered her senses and politely declined. "Chen Mama, I have only just arrived. It would be better for me to understand the situation first. The storehouse keys and the Xiaogongi's private treasury. That I must trouble you to continue managing them." But Chen Fenfong insisted on refusing. "You are the rightful mistress of this courtyard. It is only right that you take charge. In the future, you will also follow the Guogong Foreign in learning to manage the entire Guogong residence. Take these family affairs to practice on first. If there is anything you do not understand, summon me at any time." After Chun Fenfong left, the three people in the room, mistress and servants, looked at each other in dismay. Bangxia's eyes were full of amazement. The Xiaogongi was this wealthy? Yao Popo, however, frowned with worry. She felt Shen Mama's reaction was too abnormal and felt somewhat uneasy. Gu Qingning pondered for a moment and then understood the key point. Shen Mama wants to preserve the dignity of the first branch and is unwilling to see it completely decline. She first let me take over Songtao Pavilion. Next, I fear she will help me fight for housekeeping rights from Feng Shi, and then adopt a child from a side branch to continue the first branch's lineage. Yao Popo breathed a sigh of relief at this, then pressed her on whether she really intended to adopt from the second branch. A gleam of cunning flashed in Gu Qingning's eyes. What I said just now was merely to deliberately provoke Shen Ruoying. With her suspicious nature, I'm afraid she won't have a moment's peace for days. She then gave instructions. Today, let's carefully look over these account books first. The Xiaogongi has been gone for over half a year. I want to personally inspect the properties under his name. Incidentally, inform the Guogong Furin of the good news about taking over Songtao Pavilion. The next day, Gu Qingning informed Feng Shi of the matter. Feng Shi was so shocked she nearly knocked over the teacup in her hand, asking in disbelief, "What did you say?" Chen Finfeng actually handed over all of Jingyu's properties to you to manage? One must know that Lu Jingyu was deeply favored by the emperor during his lifetime, and the treasures bestowed upon him were countless. The extent of his wealth far exceeded even that of the main Guogong household. Feng Shi had long calculated that after Lu Jingyu's first death anniversary passed, that she would propose to the Guogong that these properties be given to her son, Lu Hongji, to manage. Now, however, she had been preempted by Gu Qingning. She was so angry she nearly ground her molars to dust. Consequently, the look she shot at Gu Qingning was full of venom. But Gu Qingning looked calm, completely disregarding her anger. The storms in this Guogong residence were only just beginning. She not only had to protect Songtao Pavilion, but also seized the opportunity to investigate her family's old case. No one would block her path. Who could have imagined that Gu Qingning, an orphan girl who had only been married into the Guogong residence for 2 days, would suddenly hold half a street of properties in the capital's most prosperous area, that belonging to her late husband, Lu Jingyu? This shocking maneuver that made the jaw of the Guogong Furin, Feng Shi, who coveted the family fortune, drop in astonishment. Facing Feng Shi's incredulous questioning, Gu Qingning looked indifferent, simply saying, "I wish to go and inspect the properties under the Xiaogongi's name today, that lest the stewards become lazy and deceitful." This blocked any possibility of the other party making trouble. No matter how unwilling, Feng Shi could only maintain her facade of a benevolent mother, feigning a few words of caution before letting her go. But no one saw the jealousy and ruthlessness surging in her eyes as she turned away. She could no longer hide her covetousness for that enormous fortune. Just as she stepped out of the residence gates, Gu Qingning encountered Shen Ruoying, that blocking sister-in-law. "Are you going out?" Gu Qingning nodded. Seeing this, Shen Ruoying suddenly stepped forward warmly, affectionately linking arms with her. Under the banner of sisters traveling together, she wanted to tag along. One must know that back in the Shun residence, Shen Ruoying had always disdained associating with Gu Qingning. Being so attentive now was merely because she had heard the properties had changed hands, and wanted to take the opportunity to probe the situation. Gu Qingning saw through her intentions at a glance. Whether the road is long and there is much to do, your body is delicate and weak, you won't be able to handle it. She firmly but gently shut her out, then turned and walked away quickly, leaving Shen Ruoying standing there, gritting her teeth in anger. She secretly swore that once her husband Lu Hongji inherited the title, she would definitely snatch all of this back. After walking some distance, Banksia was worried all the way, complaining about Feng Shi's gloominess and Shen Ruoying's abnormal behavior. Gu Qingning merely sneered. She knew in her heart that the jealousy of these two people was futile. For years, the Lin family's old case had made no progress, clearly because a powerful figure was covering up the truth. She no longer wanted to pretend to be weak. Only by holding power and standing higher could she tear open the fog and uncover the truth. And the assets left by Lu Jingyu were her most solid foundation. But no one expected the Xiaogongi's family business to be so substantial. Half of the most prosperous street in the west of the city belonged to his shops. When Gu Qingning arrived, the steward who had been waiting there respectfully welcomed her. This subordinate, Su Ziyuan, greets Madam. Gu Qingning, Raised her hand to signal him to rise. Steward Sue, no need for formalities. I am new to these affairs and unfamiliar with many things. I will need the steward to look after matters. As Lu Jingyu's confidant, Su Ziyuan was shrewd and capable. Initially, he might have harbored some doubts about this orphan girl madam, but he still followed orders and summoned all the shop's stewards and accountants, sparing Gu Qingning the trouble of running around. As soon as Gu Qingning stepped into the hall, everyone rose to bow. Everyone, no need for formalities. Please, take your seats. Gu Qingning walked to the main seat behind the desk and sat down, her gaze sweeping over everyone. In the past half year since the Xiaogongi passed, but it has not been easy for you all to manage the various shops in such an orderly manner. Now that I have married into the Guogong residence, I naturally ought to share some of the burden for the Xiaogongi and safeguard this family business. Having said that, she picked up the account books on the desk and began to read through them carefully. Seeing this, several stewards in the hall secretly pursed their lips. She was just a little girl who hadn't seen much of the world. Did she really think she could manage these properties? However, in just a moment, she accurately pinpointed a mistake by Steward Lu. Pawn shop, March, a large expenditure recorded as urgent. Facing Steward Lu's defense that it was a customary gift from previous years, Gu Qingning struck at the heart of the matter, saying, if this accumulates over days and months and the accounts become chaotic, who will take responsibility? One sentence left. The other party speechless, able only to admit his mistake repeatedly. Meanwhile, a look of appreciation flashed in Su Ziyuan's eyes. He hadn't expected Madame to spot accounting errors with just a cursory glance. She was indeed not simple. He glanced quietly towards the screen. With Madame having such ability, the Xiaogongi must also be satisfied. In a secret room separated by a wall, Lu Jingyu was quietly watching this scene. He had been worried that she would struggle dealing with these old foxes for the first time. Now it seemed he had worried too much. A middle-aged man in brocade robes, sitting beside him, teased with a smile. "Ayu, this wife of yours is not simple. Young as she is composed and dignified, carrying a sharpness within her grace. How does she resemble an ordinary orphan girl?" The corners of Lu Jingyu's mouth lifted slightly, his eyes filled with an imperceptible warmth. "She's indeed very good. Your Majesty, let us continue discussing business." After dealing with the accounts, Gu Qingning did not forget to reward everyone. She booked a banquet at Suixiang Tower, inviting everyone to move there for a rest. Everyone rose to express their thanks. Gu Qingning also took the opportunity to ask Su Ziyuan about opening a medical clinic. Later, she intended to open a clinic specifically for treating women. It was both to expand the business and to accumulate more connections and power for herself. Su Ziyuan cupped his hands and said, "If Madame trusts this subordinate, I will screen a few suitable storefronts for you to choose from the next few days. Then I will trouble Steward Su." But just at this moment, an unwelcome guest came knocking again. "Qingning, why are you mixing with a group of men?" Everyone looked towards the voice and saw Lu Hongji standing at the top of the stairs with an unkind expression, pointing his finger at Gu Qingning. A woman should take assisting her husband and raising children as her duty. How can you show your face in public like this? If word gets out, does our Guogong residence still want its reputation? Even though the folk customs of Great Chu were open, this second young master, whose brain was filled with feudal ethics, still stubbornly confined women within the framework of the inner courtyard. The whispers of passers-by added fuel to the fire. A woman from a wealthy family mixing with a group of men, it's really improper. And Lu Jingyu in the second-floor secret room frowned slightly when he saw this scene. This second brother of his really was a lingering ghost. She was a widow of the Guogong residence. Yet he publicly humiliated his sister-in-law. For the return-home gifts, there were actually a few items that even ordinary families would look down upon. Not shabby goods. Even the servants had dealt with her perfunctorily. However, instead of getting angry, she smiled, actually taking the initiative to bring these shabby gifts back home. It was only because she wanted to beat them at their own game, using her mother-in-law's trap. To find a breakthrough to fight for housekeeping rights. Lu Jingyu stood at the second-floor window, staring at his disappointing second brother downstairs. Lu Hongji was, pestering his newlywed sister-in-law. adopting a condescending posture of "I'm doing this for your own good." That look practically had the words "meddling busybody" carved on his face, causing disgust. Watching this face, Lu Jingyu's fingers twitched. He wanted to send someone down right then and there to teach this second brother, who didn't know the height of the heavens, a lesson. However, before his subordinates could make a move, Gu Qingning downstairs had already initiated her counterattack mode. "Don't you know Steward Su and the others?" Lu Hongji's tone carried a hint of impatience. "I know them. Let others manage the shop affairs. An inner courtyard woman should return to the residence quickly." Facing Lu Hongji's provocative remarks that an inner courtyard woman should go home and leave the shops to others, but she only smiled faintly. "Second brother, have you forgotten? You should address me as eldest sister-in-law." With this simple sentence, the suppression of status was laid out. A powerful aura instantly enveloped Lu Hongji. Lu Hongji was speechless for a moment, choked up for quite a while. But he still didn't give up. "Eldest sister-in-law, I say this for your own good." In the end, he even used moral kidnapping, claiming that women are easily deceived and that showing one's face in public damages one's reputation. But he never expected that as soon as these words left his mouth, it would be like poking a hornet's nest. He was collectively besieged by Su Ziyuan and the numerous stewards standing by. "We are all the Xiagongi's people. Who would dare deceive Madam?" Immediately after, someone said with righteous indignation, "Second young master's words are what truly tarnish Madam's reputation, aren't they?" Even more ruthlessly, someone directly dug up old grievances. No. Second young master breaking off the engagement before is what damaged Madam's reputation even more. Every sentence struck a vital point, turning Lu Hongji's face as dark as water. He flew into a rage out of humiliation, throwing out, "I don't care about you anymore," and turned to leave. But he was dealt another fatal blow by Gu Qingning. "I have already asked Mother for instructions regarding managing the properties today. Besides, my husband doesn't even control me. Why must second brother be such a busybody?" These words drained the blood from Lu Hongji's face. But what was laughable was that he actually deluded himself into thinking Gu Qingning blamed him for breaking the engagement because she still had him in her heart. Before leaving, he stubbornly insisted, "I won't argue with you today. Sooner or later you will understand that I am doing this for your own good." After speaking, he strode away without looking back. That retreating figure appeared incredibly comical and ridiculous. And upstairs, Lu Jingyu saw all of this clearly, his eyes full of appreciation. This nominal wife of his shattered his perceptions time and again. Her speech was neither humble nor arrogant, her actions wise and resourceful. How was she a weak woman to be manipulated by others? At this moment, a subordinate stepped forward to ask if they should still go teach the second young master a lesson. Lu Jingyu simply closed the window indifferently. "My second brother is simply no match for the Gu clan daughter." On the other side, the frustrated Lu Hongji ran angrily to his mother, Feng Shi, to complain, asking why she let Gu Qingning control the properties left by Big Brother. "She's a woman showing her face in public. What does that look like if word gets out?" Feng Shi was also full of bitterness, admitting frankly that it was not her instruction. But that old fox Chun Finfang, who directly handed over all of Lu Jingyu's properties to Gu Qingning to manage. Hearing this, Lu Hongji's face was full of astonishment, exclaiming in disbelief, "How is that possible?" Feng Shi's heart was already filled with unease, knowing deeply that Gu Qingning's rise would threaten her position. She could only anxiously urge her son to inherit the title as soon as possible and let Ruoying give birth to a legitimate eldest son. Only in this way will the entire Guogong residence truly be yours. Hearing his mother's words, Lu Hongji frowned imperceptibly, but ultimately nodded in agreement. Once Lu Hongji's figure disappeared outside the courtyard gate, but the warmth on Feng Shi's face instantly faded, replaced by a gloomy shadow. This Gu Qingning was truly an eyesore everywhere, making her life unpleasant. At this moment, her trusted Mei Biyun came forward to report, reminding her, "Tomorrow is the day the two young madams return home. We should prepare the return gifts." Feng Shi's eyes rolled, and a vicious idea welled up in her heart. Gu Qingning, a widow, still has the face to return home? No need to prepare anything casually for Gu Qingning. Biyun hurriedly reminded her, "But what if the eldest young madam really returns home? If you, as the mother-in-law, do not give a decent return gift, Outsiders will surely say you are treating her harshly, affecting the Guogong residence's reputation. Feng Shi pondered for a moment, finally gritting her teeth and choosing, you are right. We cannot give people cause for gossip. Just scrape together 3 or 4 random things for Gu Qingning. As for Ruoying, prepare an incomparably generous return gift. Let the Shun family see who our Guogong residence values more. She calculated perfectly. She just wanted the Shun family to see Gu Qingning as a joke and embarrass her. To vent the malice in her heart. Before long, Biyun led people to deliver the return gifts. To Gu Qingning's Songtao Pavilion. Chen Fanfang looked at those few extremely shabby items, things even ordinary families would look down upon. And her face instantly darkened. These things are inferior even to the return gifts of common families. What does the Guogong For mean by this? Is it the same for the second young madam? Biyun answered perfunctorily. This servant does not know, bobbed a curtsy, and left in a hurry. Chen Fanfang furiously wanted to go find Feng Shi to demand an explanation, but was stopped by Gu Qingning. Just take these few things back home. Chen Fanfang was extremely anxious. But madam, this wrongs you too much. Gu Qingning shook her head. This little grievance counts for nothing. Since Feng Shi wants to scheme to embarrass me, I will beat her at her own game. It just so happens I was worrying about lacking an excuse to ask her for some housekeeping rights. She has actively sent me an opportunity. Just find a way to let the Guogong know about this. Hearing this, Chen Fanfang instantly understood Gu Qingning's foresight. Madam, rest assured, this servant will definitely handle this matter well. Feng Shi never expected that the pit she deliberately dug would eventually become Gu Qingning's stepping stone to seize power. She was a newly widowed woman, yet she was suppressed jointly by the mistress of the house and her maiden family. Even her return gifts were so shabby, there were only 3 or 4 items. She was even publicly mocked as a jinx by the whole residence's relatives. However, just when everyone was waiting to see her become a joke, thus she unexpectedly obtained the housekeeping power of the Guogong residence. It was only because the mother-in-law's harsh treatment was caught on the spot by the Guogong. One day, at the entrance of the Qin Guogong residence, servants were methodically loading the return gifts onto the carriage. Shen Ruoying turned her head and looked behind her with feigned worry. Today is also the day Qingning returns home, but she hasn't shown her face yet. Could it be that returning alone is too embarrassing, so she simply doesn't want to go? Lu Hongji followed her gaze and looked back. If not for the sudden change, she would surely be returning with me as a companion right now. A trace of guilt and regret flashed across his heart, but Shen Ruoying extinguished that spark with a single sentence. It's all my fault. Otherwise, today Qingning could have returned home as your principal wife. However, I also don't know what Qingning is thinking. Why would she rather be a widow than serve you together with me? Lu Hongji's face turned cold. This has nothing to do with you. It was she herself who insisted on being a widow and a resentful woman. Shen Ruoying secretly rejoiced in her heart. As long as she repeatedly mentioned this matter to provoke him, over time, that remaining shred of guilt Lu Hongji had for Gu Qingning would vanish completely. In his eyes, it would ultimately be Gu Qingning who disregarded their years of affection and abandoned him first. What right did she have to be angry? Just as the two were harboring their own thoughts, a clear, cold laugh suddenly rang out, interrupting their conversation. They saw Gu Qingning, dressed in a green skirt, walk straight out of the residence gate, not blaming the one who broke faith and snatched his widowed sister-in-law, nor blaming the one who coveted vanity and occupied another's nest. It turns out that in this world, whoever has the thicker skin is without fault. Lu Hongji and Shen Ruoying's faces turned black upon hearing this. The former pointed at her. What nonsense are you spouting? Isn't this current situation what you chose yourself? Shen Ruoying also immediately put on a look of being on the verge of tears. Qingning, how can you misunderstand me like this? Before, I clearly wanted to become a nun. She turned back, cast a contemptuous glance at the two, and sneered, stop acting like a whore while expecting a monument to your chastity. It's shameful. Having said that, she gave the two no chance to refute, turning and boarding the prepared carriage beside her, leaving Lu Hongji and Shen Ruoying behind, trembling with rage. Able only to watch helplessly as the carriage disappeared from sight. Inside the carriage, Banksia lowered the curtain and told Gu Qingning. The faces of the two people behind the carriage turned green with anger. Gu Qingning responded indifferently. However, next it will be my turn to have a dark face. Banksia was full of confusion and was about to ask more, but Gu Qingning told her she would know once they arrived at the Guangpingho residence. Sure enough, after the carriage arrived at the Guangpingho residence, the Shun family's attitude was worlds apart. They were extremely warm towards Lu Hongji and Shun Ruoying, especially when they saw the several carriages piled high with return gifts. The smiles on their faces couldn't be hidden. They asked after their well-being incessantly. But when it was Gu Qingning's turn, everyone's enthusiasm instantly cooled. Shindafuren's face was full of smugness. She glanced at the 3 or 4 simple gifts Gu Qingning brought, then compared them to Shun Ruoying's generous rewards. And was already certain in her heart that Ruoying taking over the household management of the Guogong residence in the future was a sure thing. Qingning, look how your little face has lost so much weight. Are you being bullied in the Guogong residence? Gu Qingning bowed slightly in greeting. I have not suffered any grievances. Actually, you didn't need to make this trip specially. We wouldn't blame you. Shindafuren sighed, but said pointedly, why did you have to insist on becoming this widow back then? That asking for trouble? Facing everyone's cold words and deliberate difficulties, Gu Qingning remained expressionless throughout. Shun Ruoying nestled in Shun Leo Furen's arms, catching a glimpse of Gu Qingning's appearance out of the corner of her eye, secretly gloating in her heart. So what if she was stubborn in the Guogong residence just now? Here, she could only be left out in the cold, nothing at all. At this time, seeing it was getting late, Shindafuren stood up and invited everyone to the flower hall for a meal. A crowd of family members and relatives walked out one after another. Privately, they whispered, Qingning only has those 2 or 3 return gifts. It's truly pitiful. Just a widow, how many things can you expect her to bring? In the evening, inside the Guogong residence, Fengshe listened to Biyun report with embellishments on Gu Qingning's embarrassment at the Guangpingho residence, learning that she had been snubbed by the snobbish servants and pointed at by relatives due to her shabby homecoming gifts. The smile on Fengshe's lips could hardly be concealed. He deserved to suffer a little and realize his own status. But her joy didn't last long. The main door to the hall was slammed open, and Qin Guogong barged in, his face livid. What kind of mistress of the house are you? Fengshe trembled in fright and hurriedly stood up. Guogong Yi, why are you so angry? It turned out that Qin Guogong had flown into a rage after learning about the shabbiness of Gu Qingning's homecoming gifts. Today, a colleague of mine passed by the Guangpingho residence and saw with his own eyes that the Gu girl's homecoming gifts were pitifully shabby, while Shun Shi's gifts were 10 times as much. Wasn't this deliberately arranged by you? Fengshe's face instantly turned pale, and she cursed inwardly, knowing the Guogong would eventually find out. She hurriedly tried to explain, claiming that since Jingyu was gone, she thought Qingning wouldn't want to return home, but then she suddenly said she wanted to go, so the gifts were prepared in a rush. If it were ordinary times and matters of the inner courtyard, Qin Guogong wouldn't interfere much. But this matter had been witnessed by a colleague. If handled poorly, the censors might impeach him tomorrow. Thinking of this, he immediately ordered Fengshe to take Gu Qingning along starting tomorrow to manage the domestic affairs of the Qin Guogong residence. Fengshe was dumbfounded. What? Guogong Yi, what do you mean by this? Do you really want the whole capital to know how you mistreat the widow Gu? If you take her along to manage the household, outsiders will know that you, the mistress, care for her. The matter is settled. Fengshe listened with blood surging in her heart, almost vomiting a mouthful of old blood. She had schemed to suppress Gu Qingning, but unexpectedly, it gave her the opportunity to take charge of the household. Furthermore, as soon as the widow figured out the details of the Guogong residence, she wanted to adopt a child under the Xiaogongi's name. But no one knew that the Xiaogongi was actually still alive. Aunt Chun dared not reveal the secret, so she hurriedly told the Xiaogongi secretly. Upon hearing this, Lu Jingyu was stunned. I'm still alive. Qin Guogong ordered that from tomorrow on, the Gu girl should manage the Guogong residence alongside Fengshe. Fengshe was full of unwillingness. She had always suppressed Gu Qingning. She never expected that it would instead give the other party a chance to share power. But facing the Guogong's decision, she could only suppress the anger in her heart. She tried to block it by using the excuse that Gu Qingning was young and already had the Xiaogongi's properties to manage, but was sternly rebuffed by the Guogong. The Gu girl is now the master of Songtao Pavilion. What is the problem with her taking over the management of Jingyu's properties? What, are you unwilling to let her manage the Guogong residence? Fengshe's heart tightened at the question, and she dared not show any more dissatisfaction. She quickly suppressed her emotions and pretended to comply. How could I be unwilling? I was just worried she's too young and might not do it well. But since you've said so, starting tomorrow, I will take her along to manage the house. Seeing her agree, the anger between Qin Guogong's brows gradually dissipated. It is best if you think this way. Only when the inner court is peaceful can the Guogong residence be harmonious. Do you understand? Feng Shi lowered her eyes and meekly answered yes. But as soon as Qin Guogong left, the meekness on her face vanished instantly. She was so angry, she almost crushed her back molars. If this goes on, won't this entire Guogong residence eventually be managed by Gu Qingning? Bian quickly advised her to prioritize the Guogong's attitude. It's just sharing some authority with Gu Qingning. The real power of the Guogong residence is ultimately still in your hands, madam. After calming down, Feng Shi felt Biyun was right. The Guogong was the most important factor. So she ordered someone to go to Songtao Pavilion and tell Gu Qingning to come see her early tomorrow morning. The next day, hearing Feng Shi's summons, Gu Qingning came early to pay her respects. Feng Shi, hiding needles in her smiles, used the excuse that Songtao Pavilion was idle to make her learn housekeeping, openly and covertly mocking her for being a lonely widow with nothing to do. Gu Qingning pretended not to hear the sarcasm and responded with a smile. Being able to share mother's burdens is naturally the best thing. This angered Feng Shi so much that the smile on her face almost slipped. She hadn't realized before that this Gu Qingning was so thorny. Fortunately, Xingji hadn't married her back then. Subsequently, she threw out several large boxes of ledgers, intending to stump Gu Qingning. These are the ledgers of the Guogong residence. Take them back and check them carefully. Unexpectedly, the corners of Gu Qingning's mouth curved slightly. She answered yes and took her leave. When leaving, she specifically had servants carry the ledgers, returning to Songtao Pavilion in a grand procession. Not only that, she immediately sent people to the storeroom to take inventory of the residence's assets with great fanfare. The news quickly reached Shun Ruoying's ears. She was tasting tea in the back garden and was both shocked and angry upon hearing this. She immediately rushed to Feng Shi's quarters. After entering, she first curtsied to pay respects to Feng Shi. Lu Hongji, who was at the side, asked casually, "Why did you come over at this time?" "I wanted to come early to pay respects to Mother, but who knew that just as I arrived at the door, I saw eldest sister-in-law discussing official business with Mother. So I waited elsewhere for a moment." Shin Ruoying deliberately emphasized the words eldest sister-in-law's official business, her tone full of unwillingness. Feng Shi frowned slightly. Before she could speak, Shin Ruoying continued, "Qingning is already managing the Xiaogongyi's properties. This daughter-in-law has been in the residence for some time now. Being idle isn't a solution. I also want to learn like Qingning and contribute to the Guogong residence." Feng Shi rejected her outright. "You don't need to worry about these things. The most important thing for you right now is to give birth to the eldest legitimate grandson of the Guogong residence. As soon as a legitimate son is born, Xingji can inherit the title as soon as possible." Although Shen Ruoying was unwilling in her heart, she could only let it go. Mother's right. I heard before that the Xiaogongyi has numerous properties. Now, she can even intervene in managing the Guogong residence. Why does Gu Qingning get all the good things? Seeing the gloom between her brows, Lu Hongji quickly came over to comfort her. "After I inherit the title, the entire Guogong residence's properties will be ours. Are you afraid there won't be opportunities to manage family affairs in the future?" Shin Ruoying was somewhat comforted by this. Once her husband inherited the title, even those properties of the Xiaogongyi would all fall under their name. At that time, Gu Qingning would have nothing. Let's see how she establishes herself in the Guogong residence then. But who could have imagined that half a month later, Gu Qingning would unleash a major move? In this half month, she had thoroughly investigated the details of the Guogong residence. Knowing that Feng Shi's trusted stewards were hard to move, she thought to find opportunities later to plan her own people. Right now, there was a more urgent matter to handle. She looked at Chun Funfong beside her. "Aunt Chun, do you know which children from the Lu family side branches are suitable for adoption?" Chun Funfong was stunned upon hearing this. "Madam, you want to adopt a child for the first branch?" Gu Qingning nodded. "To completely prop up the first branch, we must adopt a child under the Xiaogongi's name. Otherwise, as a widow, I ultimately cannot hold onto the Xiaogongi's family assets. In the future, when Liu Hongji inherits the title, these properties will sooner or later fall into his and Shun Ring's hands. By then, my situation in the Guogong residence will become even more awkward." Chun Fengfang felt a different kind of emotion in her heart. The Xiaogongi was clearly still alive. There was no need for adoption. But the Xiaogongi had repeatedly instructed not to reveal the news that he was still alive. She dared not tell Gu Qingning the truth, so she could only say, "This matter is of great importance and cannot be rushed. I will go to the Liu family side branches to inquire first." Gu Qingning gave an affirmative sound. "You are an old servant of the residence and are familiar with the side branch clansmen. I am at ease leaving this matter to you." A trace of an awkward smile appeared on Chun Fengfang's face, but she secretly calculated in her heart that this matter was no small thing. She must find a chance to leave the residence tomorrow to ask for the Xiaogongi's opinion. The next day, Chun Fengfang arrived at a secret room behind a pawn shop. When she told him about Gu Qingning wanting to adopt a child, Lu Jingyu was stunned on the spot. She would rather marry a memorial tablet than stoop to be a concubine. He originally thought that becoming a widow would allow her to break free from restraints and gain freedom. But who knew that Aunt Shun from the residence had been chanting in her ear every day about the goodness of her deceased husband, chattering endlessly during the day and not stopping at night, speaking eloquently and vividly. She only thought Aunt Shun couldn't help reminiscing about old feelings, unaware that a secret was hidden behind this. Aunt Shun wanted her to fall in love with that husband who had died on the battlefield, but was actually faking his death and hiding his tracks. As mentioned in the last episode, when Aunt Shun told the Xiaogongi the news that Gu Qingning wanted to adopt a child, it actually made the fake dead Lu Jingyu break down on the spot. It turned out he had long accepted this wife in his heart. As long as she was willing, a child born of her own body would ultimately be closer to her heart. Seeing that the matter of having a child was blocked because Lu Jingyu couldn't return to the Guogong residence, Aunt Shun tentatively suggested telling Gu Qingning the news that he was still alive. However, she was decisively rejected by Lu Jingyu. He knew deeply that there were spies hidden within the Guogong residence. Before setting out for the campaign, he was inexplicably poisoned, and on the battlefield, military intelligence was leaked, causing the entire army to be wiped out. A great fire burned the soldiers' bones to ashes. He was lucky to be protected by his personal guards and left the battlefield, eventually falling off a cliff to barely save his life. He swore to root out that traitor and avenge the soldiers who died unjustly. He worried that if Gu Qingning knew his news, she would fall into danger. So he asked Aunt Shun to delay the matter of adopting a child, planning to make decisions after he purged the internal traitor and returned to the residence. While Aunt Shun was full of expectation that Lu Jingyu would consummate the marriage with Gu Qingning after returning, Lu Jingyu's mind flashed with that shy figure on the wedding night and the quietly set fire. But he believed that Gu Qingning's marriage to him back then was a helpless move and planned to give her the right to choose freely whether to stay or leave after returning to the residence. Chun Fengfang was completely dumbfounded. She didn't understand how the Xiaogongi could bear to let go of such a good wife. Could it be that he minded her background? But no matter how she persuaded him, emphasizing that Gu Qingning was intelligent and gentle, managed the properties in an orderly manner, and was a perfect match for him, Lu Jingyu remained unmoved. He understood that what Aunt Shun said made sense, but he still wanted to give Gu Qingning the right to choose. If she wanted freedom, he would let her leave with dignity. If she was willing to stay, he would protect her for life. In contrast, Aunt Shun was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan, afraid that such a good wife would run away. Perhaps the Xiaogongi wasn't keen on romance. As long as she put in more good words for him in front of the madam in the future, the madam would surely be reluctant to leave. In the following days, in order to bring the two together, Aunt Shun promoted Lu Jingyu's past deeds to her day and night, vividly describing the husband she had never met, saying how elegant, talented, and brilliant he was, as if the deceased man was a perfect man rarely seen in the world, talking endlessly during the day, chattering at night. The degree of annoyance was comparable to a midnight nostalgia special. But Gu Qingning simply didn't get her hint, and even gently comforted her to look forward, promising to guard Songtao Pavilion well. Aunt Chun was extremely embarrassed and tried to explain. Gu Qingning, however, thought she was reluctant to part with Songtao Pavilion and told her to rest assured that she would guard this place for her. Looking at her sincere eyes, Chun Finfang felt only helplessness in her heart. It seemed all her talking was in vain. Gu Qingning stopped dwelling on the past and asked about the progress of adopting a child. Aunt Chin claimed that at the earliest, they would have to wait until after Lu Jingyu's death anniversary, which would also be a chance to observe the child. Gu Qingning nodded. As long as it could be settled before Lu Hongji and his wife's child was born, it would be fine. Coincidentally, during this time, Su Ziyuan had selected a few shops suitable for opening a medical clinic for her, which required her to go see them personally. She took Banksia out and just happened to run into Lu Hongji and Shen Ruoying. Shen Ruoying hypocritically invited her to go to Keifu Temple to see the trumpet creepers together. Gu Qingning sneered inwardly, understanding they were going to pray for a son. Dragging her, a widow, along was just to humiliate her. Truly heartbreaking. Fortunately, she had long ceased to care about these things, so she calmly declined, "I still have to go see the shops. You two suit yourselves. That's really a pity. We can only arrange it next time." Shen Ring pretended to be regretful, took Lu Hongji's hand, and got into the carriage. The moment the carriage curtain fell, Lu Hongji's displeased voice came clearly. "Why did you call her? Didn't you see she was ungrateful?" Shen Ruoying defended herself weakly. "I just feel sorry for Qingning. I always feel guilty towards her in my heart." Lu Hongji sighed lightly. "If she could be as gentle and sensible as you, she wouldn't be." Gu Qingning couldn't be bothered to listen to the rest. She just sneered in a low voice. Coming back and stealing someone else's fiancé can also be counted as gentle and sensible? The two inside the carriage gritted their teeth in anger upon hearing this. Gu Qingning didn't care at all, taking Banksia and turning to leave. Accompanied by Su Ziyuan, Gu Qingning finally selected a shop. The location here was excellent, and the space was spacious. Su Ziyuan pointed to the layout of the shop, indicating that the front could be a pharmacy, and the back could be partitioned into a room just right for the madam to sit for consultations. Gu Qingning was very satisfied and handed over all follow-up matters to him to manage. Gu Qingning came from a family of medical practitioners. Both her grandfather and father were imperial physicians, and her father was a master of gynecology. But when the Lin family was wiped out overnight back then, not a single noble in the palace asked about it. There must be a hidden secret behind this. She wanted to run this medical clinic well and let her reputation reach the palace. That way, perhaps there would be a chance to investigate clues about the case from back then. As the newly widowed daughter-in-law of the Guogong residence, she was publicly humiliated by her brother-in-law, who was about to inherit the title, who even lightly suggested taking her as a concubine. However, she backhanded him with a slap, stunning the future Xiaogongi. The medical clinic was successfully completed after 2 months of preparation. Just after Gu Qingning praised Steward Su for his capability, her good friend, a disciple of the Medicine Valley, Wei Shuhe, arrived with her younger brother to help oversee things. These two became good friends with Gu Qingning after meeting by chance. Seeing the two, she immediately went up to greet them, affectionately asking how their journey was. Wei Shuhe held her hand and laughed. "Everything is fine. After receiving your letter and knowing you were opening a medical clinic, Qingshu and I rushed over immediately." Gu Qingning felt warm in her heart, but also felt she was troubling them. But Wei Shuhe said there was no need to be polite. Their Medicine Valley had a rule about traveling to practice medicine anyway. Actually, it was Gu Qingning who helped them. With them overseeing the medical clinic, she was at ease. After happily settling the siblings, Gu Qingning set off to return to the Guogong residence, who knew that as soon as she entered the gate, she saw the residence decorated with lanterns and colored streamers. The servants were all beaming with joy, a very different atmosphere from usual. While she was puzzled, Feng Shi's personal maid walked over quickly, inviting her to the main hall. Upon entering the main hall, she saw Feng Shi with a glowing face. "I called you over because our Guogong residence has a great joyous event to announce today." Hearing this, Gu Qingning subconsciously glanced at Shen Ruoying beside her. Seeing her shy appearance, she already knew in her heart. Sure enough, Feng Shi immediately announced that Shen Ruoying was pregnant. Gu Qingning wasn't surprised at all. After all, with nightly revelries at Suiwei Pavilion for 3 or 4 months, there should be good news. If this child of Shen Ruoying was a boy, he would be the eldest grandson grandson of the Gwagong and would have inheritance rights. The Xiaogongi was dead and had no heirs, leaving the title vacant. And Lu Hongji was the Xiaogongi's younger brother and had produced the eldest grandson. Now, inheriting the title was perfectly justifiable. Feng Shi would definitely make Qin Guogong petition for Lu Hongji to inherit the title. And after he inherited the title, the property and power of the Guogong residents would naturally all belong to him. To prevent the Xiaogongi's properties from also being occupied by him and Shenruoing, she had to finalize the adoption for the first branch before Lu Hongji inherited the title. The next day, Gu Qingning went to pay respects to Feng Shi. Just as she reached the corridor, she ran into Lu Hongji. High-spirited, he blocked her way. "Qingning, early this morning, father went into the palace to petition for my title inheritance. From now on, I will be the Xiaogongi of the Guogong residents. Do you have any regrets?" Gu Qingning was slightly stunned, obviously not expecting Qin Guogong to act so quickly. Seeing her silence, Lu Hongji mistakenly thought she was wavering. He immediately leaned close to her ear, his tone frivolous and carrying a hint of charity. "If you regret it, it's not too late. I can go speak to father and mother and make you a noble concubine." Gu Qingning, unable to bear it any longer, backhanded him with a slap, stunning Lu Hongji on the spot. He covered his face, unable to believe she dared to hit him. But Gu Qingning angrily rebuked him, saying that insulting his widowed sister-in-law violated moral principles, and hitting him once was letting him off lightly. If there was a next time, she would seek justice from the elders. After speaking, she left with her maid, paying no heed to Lu Hongji's resentful gaze behind her. Banksia followed beside her, worried. "Master, the second young master is about to become the Xiaogongi. Will you get into trouble for hitting him?" Gu Qingning stated he insulted his widowed sister-in-law and violated moral principles. Even if Lu Hongji doesn't care, the Guogong Yi will absolutely not tolerate such things ruining the family reputation. Having been in the Guogong residence for a few months, she discovered that the Guogong Yi still cared about the late Xiaogongi. It was just unknown how long he would care, especially now that Lu Hongji was about to inherit the title. Entering Feng Shi's courtyard, she heard Shen Ruoying's delighted voice. "That's wonderful, mother. This way, Hongji will be the Xiaogongi before long." As her voice fell, she turned and hypocritically apologized. "Eldest sister-in-law, I didn't mean to." Good heavens, this speech was overflowing with the scent of tea. One could smell the green tea even through the screen. Gu Qingning looked indifferent. "It doesn't matter. It is the truth." Then, after performing the greeting ritual, she turned to leave. Just as she walked out of the courtyard gate, she heard Feng Shi's cold snort from behind. "I think she's clearly dying of anger, but still holding on." Seeing this, Shenruoying handed over a cup of hot tea and softly chimed in. It's normal for Qingning to be angry in her heart. After all, the position of the Xiaogongi's wife was originally hers. "What do you mean originally hers?" Feng Shi's tone was displeased, carrying a hint of bias. "Jingyu is gone, so it's only right and proper for Hongji to inherit the title. Besides, this position of the Xiaogongi's wife should have been yours to begin with." Gu Qingning heard these words, but didn't take them to heart. She was currently full of strategies. The matter of Lu Hongji inheriting the title was imminent, so the adoption of a child must be handled immediately. Returning to Songtao Pavilion, Gu Qingning immediately summoned Yao, Popo, and Aunt Shun. Then she informed them about Qin Guogong entering the palace to petition for the title. These words made Yao Popo start to worry. Will His Majesty agree? Aunt Shun also looked troubled, thinking, what about the Xiaogongi after Lu Hongji inherits the title? Gu Qingning told them that since the Xiaogongi had no descendants, Lu Hongji inheriting the title was a logical progression. After speaking, she looked at Chun Finfang again. Aunt Shun, the matter of adopting a child must be finalized as soon as possible. Aunt Shen's heart skipped a beat, but she could only brace herself and nod. Then this servant will make another trip today and strive to confirm this matter as soon as possible. After Aunt Shen left, Yao Popo immediately revealed a suspicious look. Why do I feel that Aunt Shen is not very willing to adopt an heir for the Xiaogongi? Logically speaking, she should want to protect the Xiaogongi's properties and Songtao Pavilion more than anyone. Gu Qingning's eyes darkened slightly. Perhaps Aunt Shun has her own considerations, thinking there might be other options. However, we don't have much time left to consider right now. But even so, Gu Qingning still grew suspicious and sent someone to keep an eye on Aunt Chen's movements. Relying on her pregnancy to come and provoke, she thought she could trample her widowed sister-in-law underfoot, but was scared pale by a cup of chrysanthemum tea. Even her arrogant maid was slapped on the spot and humiliated. He still thought that his sister-in-law was making things difficult out of jealousy that his own husband was about to inherit the title. But what he didn't know was that from the moment she stepped into Songtao Pavilion, the real show was just beginning. Chen Fenfang left the estate gates and boarded a carriage. The young driver quickly whispered to her that there were two groups of people following behind. Chen Fenfang's heart tightened. She guessed one group was sent by Feng Shi. After all, Feng Shi had always resented the power the madam had assigned to her and kept a very close watch on the people of Songtao Pavilion. And the other group was most likely sent by the madam herself. It seemed her delay in the matter of adopting the child had aroused the madam's suspicion. Chen Fenfang didn't want a rift to form with the madam, but she also couldn't reveal the secret that the Xiaogangi was still alive. Thus, she told the servant to circle around the West City Market before returning. Inside Songtao Pavilion, Gu Qingning was quite surprised to see Chen Fenfang return so quickly. "Aunt Chen, why are you back so soon?" Chen Fenfang hurriedly explained that she had discovered Feng Shi's trusted aides following her, and, fearing the plan to adopt the child would be exposed, she had circled the market and returned. Gu Qingning's gaze paused for a moment. Aunt Chen was being so proactive. Since she could discover Feng Shi's people following her, she naturally knew that Gu Qingning had also sent people to follow her. However, knowing she was suspected, she still honestly reported the surveillance by Feng Shi, presumably to show that she had no disloyalty. Thinking of this, Gu Qingning nodded slightly. For the time being, it was better not to alert her mother-in-law and the others. "You did the right thing in this matter." Seeing that Gu Qingning did not pursue the matter further, Chen Fenfang finally breathed a sigh of relief. Just then, a maid came to report that the second young madam, Shenring, had arrived. Liao Popo was very worried, not understanding why Shenruoying wasn't arranging things at her own courtyard, but running over to Songtao Pavilion instead. Gu Qingning knew clearly in her heart that Shenruoying was most likely here to show off. But living under the same roof, she couldn't avoid seeing her, so she told everyone to respond cleverly. Shenring was supported by someone as she walked in, looking around Songtao Pavilion slowly, her eyes full of jealousy. If the Xiaogangi hadn't died in battle, the mistress here right now would be her, not Gu Qingning. But it didn't matter. Once her husband inherited the title, she would use the child in her belly to forcefully demand Songtao Pavilion. At that time, even if Gu Qingning wasn't willing, there would be nothing she could do about it. Upon seeing Gu Qingning, Shen Ruoying put on a frail appearance. "Sister-in-law, my sudden visit didn't disturb you, did it?" "No. Is there something you need?" Shen Ruoying walked to a seat and sat down, inadvertently stroking her lower abdomen lightly, her brows slightly furrowed. "My pregnancy this time was very sudden, making me somewhat uneasy. Just now I had some morning sickness and felt unwell. I didn't dare complain in front of mother-in-law, so I thought I'd come over and talk to you. After all, we grew up together. You were like family from my maiden home." Since the other party was acting this way, she would play along with this sisterly affection charade. "Since your body is unwell, you must tell the residence doctor. You absolutely must not hide your illness from the physician. The first 3 months are the most critical. Don't let anything go wrong." But Shenruoying had a glass heart and misunderstood that the child in her womb was being cursed. Sure enough, Gu Qingning pretended not to care on the surface, but actually cared very much. She subconsciously reached for the teacup at her hand. Gu Qingning suddenly said, "Hold on." As soon as the words fell, that teacup was snatched away by Banksia, who had quick eyes and hands. Shen Ruoying suppressed the anger in her heart and questioned sister-in-law. "What is the meaning of this?" Her maid, Taoji, even made a false countercharge. "Eldest young madam, is it because you're in a bad mood that you won't even give our second young madam a cup of water?" Gu Qingning sneered. "I have been suffering from some internal heat these days, so I had the maids prepare chrysanthemum tea to clear heat and detoxify. But chrysanthemum is cold in nature. If a pregnant woman drinks it, it can easily harm the fetus. If Shen Ruing drank tea here and felt uncomfortable afterward, I would be unable to defend myself. So, simply don't let her drink it. When Shun Ring heard this, she immediately felt lingering fear, and a look of retrospective dread appeared on her face. Gu Qingning turned her gaze to Taoji. Taoji, you have been in the Duke's mansion for so long. How do you not understand the rules of the Duke's mansion at all? Liao Popo slapped her mouth 10 times to teach her a lesson. Hearing this, Taoji instantly panicked. She subconsciously looked to Shun Ruoying for help, but just as Shun Ruoying spoke up to plead for mercy, she was cut off by Gu Qingning. It is because your nature is too soft that you have indulged Taoji to be so arrogant. Mother-in-law minds it most when servants are like this. If she isn't taught a lesson now and causes a great disaster someday, it will still be you who is implicated. Shen Ruoying flew into a rage out of humiliation and shook off Gu Qingning's hand. But with a command from Gu Qingning, Liao Popo immediately walked up to Taoji, bowing left and right, pa pa pa, and slapped her 10 times. Shen Ruoying looked terrible as she left with the bruised and swollen Taoji. After Shen Ruoying left, Gu Qingning immediately ordered Banksia to go invite the residence doctor. She knew well that with Shen Ruoying's temperament, she would definitely not let this go. She might as well feign illness to avoid her coming to cause trouble again. Having left Songtao Pavilion, Taoji was full of resentment, complaining that Gu Qingning took her anger out on her because she knew the second young master was going to inherit the title. Shen Ruoying also felt this made sense, thinking that once the Duke returned from the palace with news of her husband's requested title, she would see how Gu Qingning could still be smug. While the Qin Guogong Manor was waiting with full joy for the second young master to inherit the title, they didn't expect the widowed sister-in-law to steal the limelight. Not only did His Majesty personally issue a decree conferring upon her the title of third-rank Lady of Mandate, but even the one delivering the decree was the emperor's favorite. However, when his mother angrily questioned this, she was suppressed on the spot by his father. It turned out that when his father requested the title for him, he was severely reprimanded by His Majesty. The moment Xinring left Songtao Pavilion, Gu Qingning concluded that this woman would definitely not let the matter rest and would certainly come back to probe and cause trouble. To solve the problem once and for all, she simply announced to the outside that she had caught a cold and closed her doors to guests. Hearing that Gu Qingning was sick, Feng Shi was full of suspicion and immediately summoned the residence doctor. After a diagnosis, the doctor stated that the eldest young madam had only caught a chill and it was nothing serious. She just needed a rest for a few days and take medicine on time. Although Feng Shi was suspicious, she didn't think much more of it. Previously, she had arranged for people to watch Chun Fengfeng because she was worried Songtao Pavilion would come up with some method to stop Lu Hongji from inheriting the title. Now that Chun Fengfeng was staying honestly in the manor and Gu Qingning had fallen ill, she thought no one could stop Lu Hongji from inheriting the title and was happily waiting for the Duke's manor to continue its lineage and secure its power. Just as the residence doctor left here, a servant suddenly came running in frantically to report that the Duke had returned to the manor with a eunuch delivering the imperial decree, asking Feng Shi to go to the front hall immediately. Feng Shi was overjoyed and hurriedly rushed to the front hall, afraid of neglecting the decree bearer. Moments later, everyone gathered in the front hall. Even the sick Gu Qingning was invited over. When everyone saw that the one delivering the decree was actually the emperor's favorite, Shun Gonggong, they were even more excited. This was the big favorite before His Majesty. For him to come personally to deliver the decree was enough to show how much His Majesty valued this matter. Feng Shi secretly rejoiced, feeling that as long as Lu Hongji succeeded in inheriting the title, the future of the Duke's manor would be secure. Shen Ruoying was also full of anticipation, thinking that she would soon become the Xiaogongyi's wife. Lu Hongji stared fixedly at Gu Qingning, his eyes full of triumph. This widow would sooner or later regret rejecting him. Everyone held their breath and focused, waiting for Shun Gonggong to read the decree allowing Lu Hongji to inherit the title. But Shun Gonggong cleared his throat, and his opening words instantly silenced the entire room. By heaven's command, the emperor decrees, Gu Qingning, eldest young madam of the Qin Guogong Manor, is of gentle and graceful character and is hereby conferred the title of third-rank Lady of Mandate. Respect this. In the Qin Guogong Manor, except for the Duke of Qin who already knew the inside story, everyone else was dumbfounded on the spot. The smile on Feng Shi's face froze. Shen Ruoying's face instantly turned pale. Lu Hongji was full of astonishment. Gu Qingning never expected that that the Duke's trip to the palace would result in such an unexpected surprise. She coughed lightly twice and respectfully received the imperial decree with both hands. Chun Fengfang reacted extremely quickly, immediately fishing out a purse and stuffing it into the eunuch's hand. Shun Gonggong accepted it with a smile. "Eldest young madam need not be so polite. I heard eldest young madam is ill. You must take good care of your body." Gu Qingning replied politely, "It is just a slight cold. Thank you for your concern, Gonggong." Shun Gonggong looked at her neither humble nor arrogant, courteous and restrained manner, and nodded secretly in his heart, worthy of the person His Majesty values. But Feng Shi could no longer hold back, stepping forward urgently to question Shun Gonggong, claiming that she herself was a third-rank lady of mandate, and if Gu Qingning was conferred a title, wouldn't she be on equal footing with her? Shun Gonggong replied coldly, "This is His Majesty's decree. If the Duchess is unconvinced, she can go ask His Majesty herself." Seeing this, Qin Guogong hurriedly stepped forward to smooth things over. "Gonggong, do not blame her. My wife is just happy for the family matter and lost her composure for a moment." Being reminded like this, how could Feng Shi dare to make another sound? She didn't have the guts to question His Majesty, so she could only forcefully swallow her words. Xin Ming was trembling all over with anger, but dared not rashly stick her neck out, only quietly signaling Lu Hongji with her eyes. Lu Hongji suppressed his emotions and asked Shun Gonggong if there was only this one decree. After receiving an affirmative answer, Shun Gonggong hurriedly returned to the palace. Qin Guogong quickly had the steward see him out. Shen Ruoying turned her head to look at Gu Qingning holding the imperial decree, trembling with rage, her heart full of unwillingness. Why was it that Gu Qingning occupied the good things again? She was carrying the eldest, legitimate grandson of the Duke's manor, waiting bitterly for Lu Hongji to inherit the title. But in the end, it was all for nothing. Feng Shi could no longer suppress her anger and rushed in front of Qin Guogong to question him. "My lord, what exactly is going on? Didn't you go to the palace to request the title for Hongji? How did it turn into giving this little wretch?" Qin Guogong interrupted her sternly. "Shut up. This is His Majesty's will." It turned out that when Qin Guogong entered the palace to request the title for Lu Hongji, he was severely reprimanded by Emperor Jinghe. Emperor Jinghe scolded him, saying that Jingyu had been gone for less than half a year. Yet the Duke's manor was eager to erase his traces and even treated his widow harshly, with her homecoming gifts being extremely shabby. Since Jingyu was a hero who guarded Great Chu and died without a corpse remaining, such actions would surely chill the hearts of the soldiers of the realm. Qin Guogong admitted his guilt and fear. Emperor Jinghe then informed him that the matter of inheriting the title must wait until after Jingyu's third death anniversary. At the same time, appreciating Gu Qingning's deep affection and righteousness, he specially conferred upon her the title of third-rank Lady of Mandate. Qin Guogong explained the situation to everyone. When Feng Shi heard they had to wait 3 years, she almost fainted. Shen Ruoying was so agitated she retched repeatedly. She was working so hard carrying the child, yet now she would get nothing. Who knew what changes would happen in 3 years? Gu Qingning also coughed at the appropriate time. Qin Guogong didn't bother with the composure of those two, but instead told Gu Qingning to go back and rest. Gu Qingning bowed and took her leave. Seeing that the Duke only cared about Gu Qingning, Shen Ruoying was even more furious. She was carrying the eldest legitimate grandson of the Duke's manor, yet the Duke only cared about that widow. How could this not make her angry? Gu Qingning left with the imperial decree. She thought she had fallen into a desperate situation, but unexpectedly, things had taken a turn. His Majesty valued the Xiaogongyi so highly, and, consequently, the Duke's attitude towards her was also much closer and more polite than before. She knew this was an opportunity, so she instructed Banksia to spread the word in the manner that she liked reading travelogues. Banksia looked puzzled, not understanding the meaning of this. After Gu Qingning explained, she understood. In fact, Gu Qingning was calculating that once this news spread, she would have the chance to enter the Duke's study to find the case files of the Lin family from back then.